Please, let's have a seat. I welcome you to the 411th inaugural lecture titled Interrogating the Attraction and Distractions in Herbal Drug Discovery. Citation of Professor Gbola Olayiwola today and Professor Lanre Awotono. After the MSc, moving forward became very difficult as the university became unattractive with capable hands to supervise a PhD exiting the system. To stay in the system without being frustrated, he registered for the MBA degree, which made him to see the world of social sciences. The Department of Pharmacology was so depleted that Dr. Otas Ukpoana, a pharmacist, had to be seconded from the Department of Physiological Sciences to take charge of this ailing department. This provided the needed solution, making him the second person to earn a PhD in pharmacology in the faculty 22 years after the first one. With the support of Professor S.K. Adeshina, he was able to secure a place at the laboratories of Professor Eugene Joseph Vespoli at the University of Münster, Germany, where he learned investigation of antidiabetic drug development using molecular approach, among other tools. All these exposures were helpful in assisting it. Together with his mentees, he has more than 80 publications in reputable national and high-profile international journals. He is the first professor of clinical pharmacy produced by Obafemi Awolowo University. With this strong connection with the alumni of the faculty, he facilitated the donation of the following: 100 kVA generator by GSK, 150 kVA generator by the class of 1987, the refurbishment of the Marcus Lecture Theatre and Elside Lecture Theatre by the class of 1988 and class of 1992 respectively, repair of the roof of the old building by the class of 1981, and the provision of the exam processing software by the class of 1982. As the global vice chairman of JIPA, he mobilized about 30 million naira, $1 million per set, to purchase the needs of the faculty, including 40 Olympus binocular microscope. He is married to Gbemisola Olayiwola, his friend of 62 years, in a marriage of 41 years, with 3 daughters and 4 grandchildren. Permit me to invite Professor Gbola Olayiwola to deliver his inaugural lecture.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir, it couldn't have been a better day, because today I am rendering my academic tourney and journey. I couldn't have done this if there were no University of Ife and now Obafemi Awolowo University. Let us note that I'm delivering the 411th inaugural lecture of the Obafemi Awolowo University. And the title is Interrogating the Attractions and Distractions in Herbal Drug Discovery, the Critical Last Mile Before Harvest Becomes Medicine. Introduction. What is happening today? Like I said, the 411th episode in the series of inaugural lecture by a clinical pharmacist, the professional who works with everybody in the line of care. And this includes laypersons, farmers, herbal medicine sellers, traditional caregivers, basic and applied scientists, pharmacists in other specialties of pharmacy, other health professionals, individuals, families, and communities. How did I get to this place? Permit me to make a self-introduction from a journey that was plotted in an unknown space. I'm second male and second born of 5 surviving children of my mother, including a set of twins. The only surviving twins from 3 sets from my mother. Every wife of my father, except 2, gave birth to twins. Don't ask me how many wives. Then the pertinent question is, why academics? From a family of traders and from a community of people with no Western education. We'll soon get to this. But suffices to note that on a rainy night in June 1981, the then Dr. Olayiwola saw me reading on the 3rd floor of the old Faculty of Pharmacy building and asked if I'm Olayiwola. Telling him in the affirmative, he asked if I would love to do projects with him because he was impressed earlier in the day with my performance at the pharmacology laboratory. Of course, the rest is history. He supervised my bee farm and also supervised my MSc. But as fate will have it, he jumped ship when the temperature was very high in the IC. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir, permit me to put on record that I'm the first professor in the extended family. And it should not be worrisome. I told you I'm from a family of traders. The first professor of clinical pharmacy at the Obafemi Awolowo University. And the 3rd inaugural lecturer from the Department of Clinical Pharmacy and Pharmacy Administration. The inaugural forerunners are Wilson Erun and Margaret Afolabi. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir, I did not reel this out for effect. I am saying that the 3 of us are going away from the university this year. Afolabi is going in March, Erun is going in May, and Gbola Olayiwola is going in June, same year. From the same department is worth noting. The model of this presentation will be such that I will do less of reading, more of talking, because to the glory of God, we all have the text. And I made it comprehensive such that it can be a reference material even outside of this climb. I'm grateful to the Vice-Chancellor for giving a nod to my desire to make the presentation this way. Because in my own way, I think this is a way that my audience will enjoy the presentation. So what's the business of the day? We'll be talking about drugs. Drugs, drugs, drugs. We'll be talking about drug discovery. We'll be talking about drug development. We'll be talking about dosing and dispensing, among other things. So the next pertinent question will be, what are drugs? On a classical term, drugs are the active principles in medicines. But you can have a situation where your drug is also your medicine. A drug is a chemical compound or molecule, a substance of herbal or animal origin, or even of mineral resource, employed to affect a physiological or psychological state of humans or animals. So it follows that drugs can be natural or they can be synthetic. We can classify drugs into two broad areas. You have those that are used strictly for therapeutics. In other words, they are produced to address some ailments. And you have some that are not only psychoactive, they are psychotropic, and they address or they appeal to the brain. Such drugs can be used for psychedelic or recreational purpose. And for this reason, we will talk also about this because they are important to the society. And if you start from that end, we can also see that Nigeria, as of today, is faced with the burden of this class of drugs of abuse. Psychedelic drugs, psychoactive drugs, some are such that they are natural to the extent that some people bring commerce out of it. We are talking of marijuana. We also have heroin, cocaine, morphine, codeine, retinol, and tramadol. All these drugs modify moods because in an attempt to look for sedation or to look for a painkiller, a lot of people indulge in this. What are the challenges of the psychedelic drugs? One of such challenges is the environment that challenges the control. These drugs are not easy to control. And therefore, in a weak environment of control or regulation, these drugs find their ways into wrong hands. No wonder we have banditry. No wonder we have kidnapping. No wonder we have people with extreme position on the social media. All this may be traceable to drugs of abuse. What drugs are not and should not be? The drugs that we're talking about are not items of commerce. So when you see people hawking drugs, they are doing an anomaly. Pharmacies are not mere medicine stores. They are professional offices where consultation should be made. Drugs as medicine are not to be taken without professional advice. Indeed, with prescription and thereof. Every drug, even a good drug, will have untoward effects. Drugs are not placebos and should not be poison, but in between placebo and poison, we have our drugs. That means a drug is a poison that is taken in appropriate dose, at the appropriate time, by the appropriate person, and at the appropriate time. When we are talking of drugs, a lot of us believe that when you take drugs, that drugs acts for you just immediately. That is not strictly true scientifically. Before a drug can work for you, you have to first work on the drug. And that is the realm of pharmacokinetics. Simply put, pharmacokinetics is the study of what the body does to the drug. It is akin to somebody wanting to search your house, even with a search warrant. It is incumbent on you to search that person first. And that is what the body does to any drug that you take. So in the realm of pharmacokinetics, we have these components. Starting from absorption, how your drug is taken in from the point of administration to the point where it is distributed and to the point where it is biotransformed, which is also called metabolism, and later to the point of excretion. A lot of things happen in between that is detailed in the paper that you are having. The second concept is pharmacodynamics. It is after pharmacokinetics that you now have the drug working for you, and that is what is called pharmacodynamics. And it is a sequel of pharmacokinetics. Don't let us run away with the impression that one system follows the other. Pharmacodynamics can happen at any time, but because it is based on receptors, the receptor concept defines the pharmacological action as well as the side effects. When a drug is specific and the receptor is specific, you have less side effects. But when you have a lot of receptors, in other words, if the drug is not specific, you have a lot of side effects. Here we are talking of drug discovery process. We can put that in a context so that we'll be able to understand it properly. The first thing to note is that no one person can produce a drug. It is a multidisciplinary activity that involves all aspects of science and possibly some social sciences. If you develop a drug and people are reluctant to uptake it, you have to go to sociology department and see why this is so. Now, apart from the multidisciplinary nature of drug discovery, you also have the aspect addressing research and development. And this research and development can be broken down into two broad areas. You have the preclinical activities, which involves establishing the safety and after the efficacy of the drug. Let us also put it in our mind that a drug need not be efficacious. It is more important that it is safe. When a drug is safe and it's not producing any effect, we call it placebo. And it's not known widely for placebos to be poisons because they are blank. But when you have an active drug that is not safe, you are taking a poison. So we should be guided, especially by people who patronize things that they don't know a lot about. The preclinical studies is also followed by clinical trial. And this is one concept where we are lacking. We have a lot of data, robust data, on preclinical activities of most of our plants and even some synthetic drugs. But they have not crossed to the boundary of clinical trials. We may be interrogating why this is so. Now, we know that when you propose to discover a drug, particularly from natural resources, and specifically from herbal resource, there are a myriad of sources that you can consult. The first are the old folks in the community. You can also gather information from itinerary merchants, people who go from one town to the other. You can also gather information from hunters. If they shoot a game and it approaches a plant for remedy, you may want to note that that is a possibility of an effective drug. We can also look at farmers. For farmers, they can do trial and error, and they use the doctrine of signature. If this plant is red, can it give blood? Etc. Then we can also consult herbalists and, of course, warriors. By the very nature of the process of drug discovery, no single individual can discover a modern drug that fulfills all righteousness. Drug discovery is a collective effort of so many disciplines, at times multi-institutional, and may also cross racial and gender boundaries. So when we are talking of this drug discovery, we have said that we can have preclinical and clinical phases. But for the drug to enjoy universal acceptance, confidence of the people, especially on the two fundamental principles of safety and efficacy, it must pass through some basic validations. The first thing that is possible is for a genuine scientist to do an ethnobotanical survey in the community to validate the use of such herbal product or plant. And here we have the role of a taxonomist who will identify the plant that you are having without error. Without error in the sense that you have two plants that may look alike. Just like some people are looking alike in the audience, we have specifically, if you are talking of Bryophyllum pinnatum, which Yorubas call Abamada, and Kanako pinnata, which they call Odudu, you will see that they resemble, and some people may confuse the two. We also have Stachytaphyta carinensis, which is called Obibo or Ori Egun in Yoruba. Or people call it Obibo. And you have Stachytaphyta indica. The two of them look alike. If you are not an experienced person, you will confuse the two, especially when they are not at maturity. One is effective, though with caution. The other brings toxicity at the point of effectiveness. So we've got to be careful about identification. Now, some of these products, because when we learn of herbal products, the first thing that crosses our mind is let us grow them. There are some drugs that cannot grow in our environment. A typical example is digitalis purpurea, which from where we get digoxin, that gives us a relief from heart problem. Digitalis purpurea grows only in Asia, particularly in India. And there's another one, risapine. Another reason. Let's talk of risapine. Because risapine is concentrated in the root of Rawavia vomitoria, the ones Yoruba call asofeyeje. That means if you need risapine, you have to uproot the Rawavia vomitoria. And it takes 15 years to get to maturity. Are we going to wait another 15 years for somebody who has schizophrenia or hypertension for which risapine is used? Definitely no. So we have to take a shortcut. And the shortcut is to go and see whether we can synthesize this. Now the synthesis, for some of them, are not easy because of so many factors. Some are complex molecules that cannot be derived in the laboratory setting. Some have problems with what we call stereochemistry. That is the positioning of some of the functional groups. And therefore, it may not be easy to synthesize them. Then, even when you grow this Rauwavia vomitoria, what is the yield that you are expecting? It's so small that you may not be able to take care of that your patient for whom you have preserved something that grows in 15 years. Now, we have a list of examples of herbal drugs that are difficult to synthesize. There are many, and they are very useful drugs. Quinine, artemisinin, morphine, vinblastine for cancer. They are difficult to synthesize. This list of drugs, they are derived exclusively from plants. They cannot be synthesized. And therefore, we have to rely on them or get something that is clear or, very near them in terms of activity. People will also know that an attempt to synthesize digoxin can only give us digitoxin, which pharmacokinetically is not the same thing as digoxin. Like I said, we are talking of drug safety and efficacy. And therefore, if we look at this scheme, we are talking of, from the laboratories, particularly of pharmacognosis and scientists. When they get a lead compound, they pass it to pharmaceutical chemistry for possible synthesis, which is passed to the Department of Pharmacology for safety first, then efficacy, if possible. Then we now go to pharmaceutical chemistry when we have succeeded, pharmaceutics and pharmaceutical technology. When we have succeeded in the product that chemistry people are giving us. And from there, the technology people will see whether it is viable as a drug and in what dosage form. It is from there that other processes can take place. But let us treat ourselves to one fact, scientific fact. The gorilla, our closest cousin, has genetical correlation with human beings up to 99.9%. The 0.1% addresses issues of all the hairs, the type gorilla is looking, the lack of communication, verbal communication. So we can see what 0.1% can do and is doing. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir, the animals that are used for all the preclinical things are largely many species. Because all these species, especially those that are mammals, they have some genetical correlation with us. So we really have to be, we are systematic about using them. And these are the ones that we have deployed over time. And apart from the efficacy and mechanism elucidation, the rabbits, particularly because of their lifespan and the way they procreate, we use them for teratogenic studies. That is, if there are effects that are deleterious in humans, it possibly should have shown in animals like rabbits, and that is instructive. Dogs and big apes are also used because of the similarities in the handling of drugs to human beings. We have said that the department that has responsibility for formulating should also give us an idea of the stability of the drug, and that informs the expiry date that is put on drugs. So on the issue of expiry dates, in 1 minute, let me treat you to one information. We are all aware that in 1991, Iraq invaded Kuwait. And it was envisaged to be a long-drawn war. However, the war ended in 42 days. But that is not the problem of a pharmacist. The problem with us is that the U.S. Army acquired $1 billion worth of drugs to address any eventuality at the war front. With the war ending in 42 days, they ended with a lot of drugs on their hands. It cannot be tipped into the sea because the marine life will be affected. It cannot be incinerated because it will pose danger to both human and the environment. And because of the massive nature, it could not be buried. Troubled by this, the U.S. Army approached Harvard University. And the Harvard University conducted search, sample on sample, and they found out, and that was in 2016. And the drugs that were procured in 1991 for purpose also had 100% integrity as of 2016. It throws a lot of doubt into the indication of expiry date. But we have to have a caveat here. The caveat is, if a drug is in solution, all mixtures, suspensions, once they are opened, start counting days for them. 30 days, discard them. Even if they are tablets and they are changing color, the physical presentation is changing, kindly discard them. For you and I, the amount that we are taking is so small that after it has done its work, you can safely discard them without any problem. But for procurement that went awry, people may have to consult institutions. And I make bold to say that Obafemi Awolowo, the Premier School of Pharmacy, can do this seamlessly. So, what's the status of discovery of drugs in Nigerian university? Summarized, we are all at the preclinical stage, and we need to move beyond that. What are the attractions of drug discovery from herbs? The first attraction is the cheap sources for the preparation of herbs. We can't beat this. We have arable lands. We also have perceived and real safety from deleterious effects of herbs. When we say perceived or real safety, everybody believes that if it's of plant origin, it is safe. Mind you, the plant is living for itself. Everything that you see there is there to balance its own life. It doesn't have your data. However, we have drugs that are poisons from the onset. We have some that become poison upon manipulation. So please, we all have to subject all this to scientific validation, because all plants have something to offer, including weeds. It will also afford people employment opportunities. We can imagine if all of us are not growing food, and some specialize in growing herbal products. That will be most welcome, and it's definitely will be good. Then the environmentalists will also smile, because in growing things, you are protecting the environment. What are the distractions? The distractions are many, including the characteristics of the herbs. The fact that herbs have multi-components that make it to live. So standardization is a challenge. And the protocol for all this are also challenged. There will be no problem of doing bioequivalence of one drug to the other. You just have a standard to combine. But for plants, you hardly have a standard to compare. Even if you are looking for the isolated component of the plant, be rest assured that that isolate may have the same side effect as the synthetic drugs. Then lack of political will to create and enforce protocol. This is a country that can do many things, and we are not doing anything. The focus of NAFDAC on revenue generation rather than establishing and maintaining standard is worrisome. Then effort of the mass media. Long time back, you will see stand 4, stand 16, stand 50, and they were encouraged and promoted by our electronic media. Thank God that that process has drastically reduced now. It was misleading. Unfortunately, we could not capture data because people started with denial. 2 weeks after every exhibition of drugs, at the Obafemi Awolowo University Teaching Hospital, we will have people with kidney challenges. And they will tell you that they did not take any herbal product. It was much later that they will be confessing. Then there are deliberate misinformation about herbs. How can somebody tell you that it can reverse sickle cell anemia, something that is genetic? How can somebody tell you that it can cure rather than manage diabetes? How can you be accessible to the thought that hypertension will be cured by taking maybe 1 or 2 doses of the herbs? It did not happen. It may not happen. What are the critical miles that we must trek before our harvest can become medicine? The first is to allow due diligence in the testing and processing of herbal drugs as applicable to synthetic drugs. We also have to appreciate the sources of knowledge about herbs. It is critical, it is important that we acknowledge this source so that the sources are not blocked. Then we should make science interesting, rewarding, and answerable. As scientists interrogate and put the herbs through scrutiny, in this context, I am proposing that clinical trials must be convincing even on herbs. Then I advocate that NAFDAC should be equipped for purpose. And let NAFDAC also outsource challenging tasks to establish universities and research institutes, because there is no evidence that we have capacity. The tracking, and trappings, my research focus. I've carried out research in 3 main areas. In the area of pharmacy practice, also in pharmacological screening of plants for management of non-communicable diseases, as well as area of neuropharmacology. Especially my contribution to drug discovery through neuropharmacology, and this addressed issues of seizures or convulsion, learning and memory, insomnia, which is sleeplessness, anxiety, pain, and inflammation. In the first set, my findings was able to show the lacuna in practice, and systematically we are blocking this. It's a lot of work to do by the professionals, and they are addressing it, because some of the things we address are systematically being taken care of. Then management of non-communicable disease, particularly diabetes, jaundice, and asthma. With Ojewole and a lot of other researchers, most of them are seated, we investigated Ejirinwewe or Momodika charantia, and we found them to be effective for diabetes. We also investigated Jatropha tangerensis, which is called Efo Catholic or Efo Paja. For analgesia, there's a wide-growing beans variety called Vigina ungulata, or wide, or Ewe Ewaibo. It's also good for inflammation and analgesia. So also is the Iroko tree, Milicia excelsa. The bark, the leaves, the stem were also investigated for effectiveness against pain, especially pain of inflammation. We also, at different points, assembled information from other clients in some reviews led by Professor S.K. Adeshina, here seated, where we gathered plants that are capable of addressing respiratory disorders in 2 publications. With a colleague, Mukbelala Ayeni, we investigated the bilirubin lowering potential of unripe pawpaw, Carica papaya, Ibekwe dudu. When you manipulate it, it can lower the bilirubin of somebody suffering from sickle cell anemia. In neuropharmacology, using a lot of drugs to arrive at the conclusion that most of these plants were effective, especially Vigna ungulata, Milicia excelsa, Chrysolium albidon, which is agbalumo. Why are we interested in agbalumo? 2 things. People can swallow it, the seed, unintentionally. And we came up with the fact that it is toxic. If it is must be used, it must be moderated. It is used for most gynecological problems, at least at the animal level of investigation. Also, we did a study on Stachytophyta cayennensis because this plant was reputed to have 28 different powers to remedy such 28 afflictions. And we set out, to the glory of God, we confirmed about 11 of these 28, and including diabetes, including inflammation, including insomnia, convulsion, when they are manipulated in different ways. I also want to thank a living legend, Professor S.A. Adesanya, because when he was in Uyo, he asked that I should test Stachytophyta indica. Stachytophyta indica was very poisonous. It was not effective at any dose. But Stachytophyta cayennensis was. And also, if it were produced as a drug, it would have to be a prescription drug. Then, let us go to my teaching, my choice, my teaching style, and mentoring. I have enjoyed teaching as a matter of choice. It was a choice freely made. I substituted teaching for trading, and I'm grateful to God for that. I also enjoyed mentoring from legendary Lamikara ADEBAYO, who would not come to the class with any paper, and also Professor Lanre Ogunlana. I put it on record that I love my students, and I know my students know me well to love me. From 1986, that I started flying as a small lecturer, I had made it that no student would go home and commit suicide, whatever the problem would be. So I got close to them. They are my friends, because I also know that I'm laying a beacon that was not available in my family, and I need to do it right. And to that extent, we became friends without lowering standard. I could tell you that you fail, and you will look for a musician to herald you home. I appreciate the system that we created, that the Faculty of Pharmacy created, by establishing the Great Ife Pharmacy Alumni Association. They have built the faculty out at different times. I remember when we did the 68th anniversary, I convinced the students, each class, to give 1 million naira. Even those who I did not meet in school, they contributed 1 million naira. We got 30 million naira to uplift the faculty. We did what the university could not do. We bought 40 binocular microscopes for the faculty. So I appreciate the give back attitude. I am one teacher that had a lot of challenges. I was teaching in one department and researching in another department. I was teaching in clinical pharmacy and researching in pharmacology. When it was time to do an audit of Whether I move forward, I go back to Belucheriki. Professor Eru came on hand and he devised something they call experimental therapeutics. I'm grateful to you. All along, I've been assisted by my friends, my classmates, my seniors in the profession, and later my students. I've been a child of circumstance. Without being a strict orphan, I've been treated with love on every ladder of my life. Community service, because there are three mandates of an academician: teaching, research, and community service. To the glory of God, I'm happy that I've discharged all these three in my capacity as God has laid it upon me. Since a very long time, I've been participating in giving free drugs, leveraging on the many MDs of multinationals that I've taught to give us free drugs. And we take it to underserved communities. We have been in Yekemi, we have been in Ikpetu, Ijesha. We have been everywhere, giving free drugs to people. And I have one person who is standing as an institution to thank for this, and that's Professor Omalola Ineoye. We are like Siamese twins since we started the NGO, Family Health Development Initiative, FAEDI. And we have been doing it excellently. Our personal resources and our goodwill have been seen us. Yes, in Rotary, which is a community service, Rotary happens to be the only non-governmental entity that has permanent observer status in the United Nations, and I'm proud to belong to one. Indeed, I'm the current president for Oluyole Estate Rotary Club of Ibadan. And I have my members here to testify to that assertion. For 10 years, I've been heading the health outreach of this noble organization, and I promise that I will still continue to discharge it. Well, I've nested my retirement. God willing, I'll be at ATMISI, where I'm practicing as the technical director. ATMISI is African Traditional Medicine Herbal Supporters Initiative. And together with my supervisor, my friend, my mentor, Professor J.O. Ojewole, who is the Director of Administration, I am serving as the Technical Director. In conclusion, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, what we must do are not many. We must just ensure that we set standard and uphold the standard. In 1960, we will have been the light. And if you missed the bus yesterday, today is another opportunity. So we are asking that the WHO position released long after I have concluded my writing lays perfectly on my submission. On December 21st, they released a communique, 2025, they released a communique of a meeting held between December 15 and 17 in New Delhi. And all that are proposed are what WHO is also proposing. Just ensure standard, uphold standard, run through protocols, and the herbal preparation will be in the forefront. Acknowledgement to all of you seated here, first and foremost. Then, my mother, who saw me through, it's not about money, it's about knowledge. She was an illiterate, but apparently she was tripped by some of the people, particularly the Olubadan of Ibadan land, the current Olubadan, who happens to be his son. So if Rashidi Ladoja could go to Belgium to go and study whatever in my mother's thought, then everybody should be able to do that. My mother gave me everything I could ever ask for. As a student on this campus, I was riding a power bike. I graduated from power bike to a brand new 505, courtesy of my mother. Then in 1973, this man came to our house. I didn't know our relationship. He saw me and he found that I could be trained, I could be influenced. And ever since, he took me to Lagos and started teaching me mathematics. He designed an engineer in me, but that design failed. But I told him, you have produced the first professor of clinical pharmacy in the family. Of course, Professor John Akane Oluwole, the person who saw me, whatever I saw, that made him to feel that I could be a future pharmacologist. I'm happy, I'm grateful. Ojawole is 80 plus. I'm happy I celebrated him when he was 80. Then late Professor Otasowe Onkponwan, who eventually took over my build-up and supervised my PhD. May God bless his memory. Now, I cannot thank Professor Adeshina enough, because apart from my early days in the United States as a student in 81 and thereabout, he was also the person that influenced my going to Germany, not with my money. In fact, they gave me enough money that I could not spend. I bought cars, brought them to Nigeria. I thank all my classmates who provided me with spaces to banter. I'm not a strictly your run-of-the-mill gentleman. I can be troublesome, and I find much in some of my friends. I am a moderate extrovert, and I do that diligently. I am friendly with all generations. To God be the glory. I want to appreciate a special class of friends. I did not go to Ijebu Grammar School, but class of 1973, they are all my friends. The Ile-Ife of Ile-Ife is here to show that I'm friendly with the class. And so also are many people from that class. So also are the boys that brought me up. The Aida Grammar School old students, they are also here represented. I thank them because they allowed me, I was so small, in size. I could not fetch water from the well. Somebody in Form 2 was fetching water for me. And when they wanted to take that on me, I become sharp-mouthed, typical of Ibadan. I thank my siblings, Taiwo and Kehinde Omoloko. They are here. Those are the surviving twins of my mother. You know, and they are not terribly young. I think they are 64 years. I'm at a dilemma when we talk of children. I have 3 biologicals with 4 grandchildren and thousands of children, most of whom not only provided what you are reading free of cost to you, they are also providing food after this. I've acknowledged a lot of people. Like I said, there are so many people in my life. I've acknowledged them collectively. My Polytechnic of Ibadan friends, my firstborns. Who are my firstborns? Those that stayed behind after graduating. When I say behind, they stayed in touch with me. My in-laws, there are many, and some are still expected. Then my special stabilizers, Emeritus Professor Bode Ashubiojo, Emeritus Professor C.A. Ajayi. There are many. They are stabilizing factors. My wife. There is nobody, I challenge anybody here who has a marriage in quote, of 61 years. I've been coming with my wife hand in hand for the past 61 years. And we got married in 1985, making it 41 years. And I've never one day regretted asking her for my love. Gbemisola, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for what you do. On this note, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir, I conclude the story of many years, 40-something years, in less than 1 hour. Thank you very much.
Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife. Certificate of presentation of inaugural lecture. This satisfies that Gbola Olayiwola, a professor of clinical pharmacy in the Department of Clinical Pharmacy and Pharmacy Administration, Faculty of Pharmacy, Obafemi Awolowo University Ile-Ife, Nigeria, delivered the 411 inaugural lecture titled Interrogating the Attractions and Distractions in Herbal Drug Discovery, the critical last mile before harvest becomes medicine, on January 13, 2026. Congratulations.
Yes, may I humbly call on the wife of 61 years. Madam, please come.
Mami akule o.
Ọkọ mi Àkànní ọmọ káàbọ̀ kódà ọmọ rìn àìsàn bàbá kúlé ndé mà ti fẹ́ gbòde.
Kí Kílẹ̀ ló fún rí?
Egbògi lápá fún lánàá, ewé àsúfẹ́yẹjẹ, èèpo ahùn, ewé efinrin, àti epo bẹ́pẹ. Ọmọ rẹ̀ sì tún fún ní káńsù tọ́ra àbọ̀
On this note, may I recognize our royal fathers, Ọ̀ràngún of Òkèlá, Ọba Adédòkun Abọ́lárin, Elese of Ilese Ìjẹ̀bú, retired permanent secretary of Ogun State, His Majesty Ọba Olúrẹ̀mí Ọbáyọkùn. Shall we say Kábíyèsí o? Representatives of the Olúbàdàn of Ibadan Kingdom, Olóyè Adégbóyèga Adégòkè, Ààrẹ Ẹgbẹ́ Ọmọ Balógun of Ibadan Land, His Royal Majesty Ọba Dr. Gbadegesin Elúbọ̀dé Adétóògùn, Apèjì Ọ̀gá the First Olú of Ọbágbilẹ̀ Ìlara-Ifẹ̀, His Royal Majesty Ọba Oduduwa Wọlé Fáwọlé, the Olu of Olorombo Town, Ife Kingdom. And please, I have this instruction and I stand on the authority of the Vice-Chancellor that those of us here, please let's make use of this exit there. Open that gate for me, my brother. And those at the back, please let's open the exit there for them so that they go. People from here can also go from here. So people from there can also go out there. So we have 5 different exits here because of some packages that have been reserved for all of us. Good evening and God bless.
Ọ̀rọ̀ rẹ̀ ò ẹ̀yin èèyàn wa, ìlòkulò ògùn léwu, káńsù lónìí, oníkóró lọ́la, olómi lọ́túnla, kábùsẹ̀ gàdàkà tó pe bogi mẹ́lẹ̀ láì délé ìwòsàn, ó ti o. Rédíò Ọ̀ṣun ló ní àlàáfíà lójú.
Màámi ẹ kúlé o.
ọkọ mi Àkànní ọmọ káàbọ̀, kódà ọmọ àárín, àìsàn bàbá Kúléndé mà ti fẹ́ gbòde.
Kílẹ̀ ló fún rí?
Egbògi lápá fún lánàá, ewé àsúfẹ́yẹjẹ, èèpo ahùn, ewé efinrin, àti epo bẹ́pẹ. Ọmọ rẹ̀ sì tún fún ní káńsù tọ́ra àbọ̀ lọ́jà lánàá.
Màámi, kílẹ̀ ń sọ yìí ná? Adalu ogun ní mọ̀ ń pọ́n kú lọ yìí.
Ó ṣe àdàbáhùn, ṣé bíbá àti ṣe nù.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ti ṣe ń wọ̀dà pa.
Tó ọ̀rọ̀ rẹ̀ ò ẹ̀yin èèyàn wa, ìlòkulò ògùn léwu, káńsù lónìí, oníkóró lọ́la, olómi lọ́túnla, kábùsẹ̀ gàdàkà tó pe bogi mẹ́lẹ̀ láì délé ìwòsàn, ó ti o. Rédíò Ọ̀ṣun ló ní àlàáfíà lójú.
Màámi ẹ kúlé o.
ọkọ mi Àkànní ọmọ káàbọ̀, kódà ọmọ àárín, àìsàn bàbá Kúléndé mà ti fẹ́ gbòde.
Kílẹ̀ ló fún rí?
Egbògi lápá fún lánàá, ewé àsúfẹ́yẹjẹ, èèpo ahùn, ewé efinrin, àti epo bẹ́pẹ. Ọmọ rẹ̀ sì tún fún ní káńsù tọ́ra àbọ̀ lọ́jà lánàá.
Màámi, kílẹ̀ ń sọ yìí ná? Adalu ogun ní mọ̀ ń pọ́n kú lọ yìí.
Ó ṣe àdàbáhùn, ṣé bíbá àti ṣe nù.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ti ṣe ń wọ̀dà pa.
Tó ọ̀rọ̀ rẹ̀ ò ẹ̀yin èèyàn wa, ìlòkulò ògùn léwu, káńsù lónìí, oníkóró lọ́la, olómi lọ́túnla, kábùsẹ̀ gàdàkà tó pe bogi mẹ́lẹ̀ láì délé ìwòsàn, ó ti o. Rédíò Ọ̀ṣun ló ní àlàáfíà lójú.
Màámi ẹ kúlé o.
ọkọ mi Àkànní ọmọ káàbọ̀, kódà ọmọ àárín, àìsàn bàbá Kúléndé mà ti fẹ́ gbòde.
Kílẹ̀ ló fún rí?
Egbògi lápá fún lánàá, ewé àsúfẹ́yẹjẹ, èèpo ahùn, ewé efinrin, àti epo bẹ́pẹ. Ọmọ rẹ̀ sì tún fún ní káńsù tọ́ra àbọ̀ lọ́jà lánàá.
Màámi, kílẹ̀ ń sọ yìí ná? Adalu.
If it had not been